Have you ever wondered why your body sometimes becomes its own worst enemy? Imagine your immune system, designed to protect you, suddenly turning into the very thing causing you harm. It sounds like something out of a medical thriller, but for millions of people, this is everyday reality. Today, we are diving deep into one of the most misunderstood yet critical topics in human health: chronic inflammation. We will explore what it is, why it happens, and most importantly, what you can do about it. This is not just another health video. This is a comprehensive guide that could genuinely change how you understand your body, your symptoms, and your long-term well-being. So stay with us, because what you are about to learn might completely reshape how you think about your health. Before we get into the causes, let us set the stage with something that might surprise you. Inflammation itself is not the villain. It is actually a natural healing and repair process your body relies on every single day. The real problem begins when inflammation becomes chronic, quietly lingering inside your body and causing widespread, long-term destruction. Think about a cytokine storm, where a hyperinflammatory immune response in the lungs becomes so severe that doctors must prescribe prednisone just to calm it down. That is a dramatic but perfect example of what we are talking about. It is not the virus doing all the damage in that situation. It is your own body's reaction to it. Your immune system, meant to protect you, ends up becoming the source of harm. Now here is something even more fascinating and a little alarming. There is a phenomenon called inflammatory oncotaxis. This is where cancer tends to spread into areas of the body that have experienced mechanical injury or chronic inflammation. Think about what that actually means. Whether it is repeated food irritation in the colon, chronic smoking in the lungs, or high glucose damaging artery walls, inflammation essentially creates a roadmap for cancer to follow. The body's damaged, inflamed tissue becomes a preferred destination for migrating cancer cells. This is not a coincidence. It is a biological pattern that researchers are only beginning to fully understand. And understanding this gives us genuine power. The power to predict where cancer might travel, and more importantly, to prevent the conditions that invite it. This is exactly why this topic matters so deeply. Let us start with the first cause of inflammation, and this one might genuinely surprise you. It is a lack of cortisol, which is the body's primary anti-inflammatory hormone. Now here is the twist. You do not get low cortisol by having too little of it. You get it by having too much. Just like insulin resistance develops from chronically high insulin, cortisol resistance develops from chronically high cortisol caused by ongoing stress. Your body essentially floods with cortisol day after day. The receptors gradually stop responding to it, and suddenly, your natural anti-inflammatory system stops working entirely. What was once your body's built-in defense against inflammation becomes completely ineffective, leaving you vulnerable to widespread, persistent inflammation that your system can no longer regulate or control on its own. This cortisol resistance is behind nearly every condition ending in the suffix itis, whether that is bursitis, arthritis, or tendinitis. When your receptors stop responding to cortisol, your body loses its primary defense against runaway inflammation, and these painful conditions become almost inevitable. But here is where things get genuinely exciting. Vitamin D behaves remarkably similar to cortisol inside the body. It is not truly a vitamin at all, but a hormone, and it is arguably the most powerful natural anti-inflammatory available to us. Doses ranging from 10,000 to 40,000 international units can produce effects genuinely comparable to prednisone, without the dangerous side effects that come with long-term steroid use. If you have been struggling with any inflammation-related condition, this single insight alone could completely transform your entire approach to managing it going forward. The second cause of inflammation is allergies, and this category is broader than most people realize. It goes well beyond the obvious reactions. Yes, food allergies like dairy and gluten are included, and so are environmental triggers like ragweed or poison ivy. But there is a more hidden and often misunderstood form sitting within this category: autoimmune disease. Think of it as your immune system developing an allergy to your own tissues. Conditions like Hashimoto's thyroiditis, lupus, and multiple sclerosis all fall squarely into this group. Your body essentially identifies its own cells as foreign invaders and launches an attack. The common thread running through every single one of these conditions is inflammation, driven by your immune system's deeply misguided attempt to protect you by attacking itself. Moving on to the third cause, we have both acute and chronic infections. Now, acute infections are relatively straightforward. Your immune system fires up, identifies the invader, launches a targeted attack, and once the threat is eliminated, inflammation resolves and your body returns to normal. But chronic infections are an entirely different story. Viruses like Epstein-Barr and conditions like Lyme disease can lie completely dormant inside the body, quietly waiting for moments of stress or immune weakness to reemerge. And every single time they do, they trigger yet another wave of damaging inflammation throughout your system. This creates a recurring cycle that many people never connect back to an old infection. This is precisely why keeping your immune system consistently strong is not just good general advice. It is genuinely your primary and most essential line of defense against long-term inflammatory damage. Moving right along, the fourth cause is gut inflammation, and it is far more common than most people suspect. Inflammatory seed oils like soy, canola, and cottonseed oil are absolutely everywhere in the modern food supply, and they are a leading driver of gut irritation. But they are not working alone. Antibiotics wipe out the protective gut bacteria your immune system depends on. Constipation creates internal toxicity as waste lingers far too long. And leaky gut allows partially digested proteins to escape into the bloodstream, triggering widespread immune reactions that can affect your joints, skin, and brain. For anyone dealing with gut inflammation, 3 natural remedies stand out. Cabbage in fermented forms like sauerkraut or kimchi actively heals the gut lining. Wheatgrass juice powder soothes irritation from within. And zinc L-carnosine offers targeted mucosal protection that very few people know about. Now we arrive at what is arguably the most common cause of chronic inflammation in the modern world: glucose and sugar. When blood sugar rises, it damages the delicate single-cell thick lining of your arteries, triggering an inflammatory cascade that leads to plaquing, clotting, and eventually heart disease, vision problems, kidney damage, and neuropathy. Think of your artery walls like a smooth, pristine road. High glucose is like pouring acid on that road, creating cracks and damage that your body desperately tries to patch up through inflammation. High glucose also drives insulin resistance, which in turn creates even more inflammation. It becomes a self-reinforcing cycle that is nearly impossible to escape without directly addressing your diet, specifically by going low-carb and practicing intermittent fasting as your primary intervention strategy. Beyond glucose itself, there are several additional but often overlooked contributors to chronic inflammation. Your own fat cells actively produce pro-inflammatory cytokines, creating a troubling two-way relationship where inflammation drives fat storage, and fat storage drives even more inflammation. It becomes a cycle that feeds itself relentlessly. Then there are old injuries, the ones you thought healed years ago. Sprains, strains, and impacts that never fully resolved keep your body locked in a low-grade inflammatory state for years or even decades without you realizing it. And problems in the bile ducts, where sludge or gallstones restrict bile flow, can create persistent right-sided pain and inflammation that mimics entirely different conditions. Purified bile salts, or a compound called taurorsodioxycholic acid, commonly known as TUDCA, can offer surprisingly fast relief specifically for this issue. 2 more causes deserve serious attention. The first is vitamin D deficiency, which affects the majority of the population and directly increases susceptibility to inflammation and pain throughout the bones, joints, and lower back. Without adequate vitamin D, your body simply cannot regulate inflammatory responses effectively, leaving your joints and tissues vulnerable to ongoing damage. The second is the imbalance between omega-6 and omega-3 fatty acids. Most people consume far too many omega-6 fatty acids from seed oils, and far too few omega-3s from sources like salmon, sardines, and cod liver oil. This imbalance quietly fuels systemic inflammation throughout the entire body and can even cause arthritis-like symptoms in people who are fasting without supplementing omega-3s. Both of these deficiencies are correctable, and addressing them can produce dramatic improvements in how you feel. There is one more cause that ties everything together, and it is something most people never associate with inflammation at all: frequent eating. Every single time you eat, you trigger an insulin response. Even if your food choices are relatively healthy, constant snacking keeps insulin elevated throughout the entire day, quietly sustaining a state of low-grade inflammation inside your body. This persistent insulin elevation prevents your system from ever fully recovering or resetting. This is precisely why intermittent fasting is not simply a weight loss tool. It is genuinely one of the most powerful anti-inflammatory interventions available to you right now. It lowers insulin levels, activates your body's own internal antioxidant networks, and gives your entire system the critical recovery time it desperately needs to heal and restore balance from within. Now, let us talk solutions. The foundation of any anti-inflammation strategy starts with vitamin D3, ideally 10,000 to 40,000 international units, depending on severity, always paired with vitamin K2 to prevent calcium buildup in the arteries. This combination alone addresses one of the most fundamental drivers of chronic inflammation. Eliminating inflammatory triggers like seed oils, refined carbohydrates, and known allergens is absolutely non-negotiable. You cannot out-supplement a bad diet. For chronic infections, combining vitamin D with whole food vitamin C and antimicrobial herbs like garlic, oregano oil, and thyme can help suppress dormant viruses without the dangerous side effects that often accompany pharmaceutical interventions. These natural tools work with your body rather than against it, giving your immune system exactly what it needs to finally restore balance and begin genuine long-term healing. For those dealing with cardiovascular inflammation, tocotrienol vitamin E at around 300 milligrams is 50 times more potent than standard tocopherol and can significantly reduce oxidative damage inside the arteries. This is not a minor upgrade. It is a fundamentally different compound that targets arterial tissue with remarkable precision. Turmeric, particularly from high-quality whole food sources, and stinging nettle root are two herbal allies that work remarkably well for general inflammation across multiple systems in the body. And for anyone concerned about iron overload, which is a surprisingly common but overlooked driver of liver inflammation and fibrosis, avoiding iron-fortified grain products and iron-heavy multivitamins is a simple but genuinely meaningful step. These targeted strategies, layered on top of your foundational habits, can make a measurable difference in how your body manages and resolves chronic inflammatory conditions over time. So here is the big picture. Chronic inflammation is not a single problem with a single solution. It is a web of interconnected causes, from cortisol resistance and gut damage to high glucose, poor fats, old injuries, and nutrient deficiencies. But the encouraging truth is that most of these causes are within your control. By going low carb, practicing intermittent fasting, optimizing vitamin D, balancing your fatty acids, and removing inflammatory triggers from your diet and environment, you can systematically dismantle chronic inflammation and reclaim your health. Every small step you take compounds over time, shifting your body from a state of constant internal fire to one of genuine healing and resilience. You now have the knowledge. The next move is yours. With that said, thanks for watching, and until next time.